The Dhamma-Viharin Sutta, the subtitle is One Who Dwells in the Dhamma. Let me read it and I'll just comment as we go along. On one occasion, a certain monk went to the Buddha, bowed, and sat to one side. He asked the teacher, "What is the meaning of one who dwells in the Dhamma?" The Buddha replied, "There is a case where a Dhamma practitioner may spend the day in Dhamma study. They may investigate the dialogues and narratives of prose and verse, the spontaneous exclamations and quotations, the stories of birth and amazing events, and question and answer sessions. If this one neglects seclusion and does not commit to developing the inner tranquility that rests in refined mindfulness, this one does not dwell in the Dhamma." So the Buddha is just saying that it's more than just studying his words and listening to other teachers. The important foundation of proper meditation cannot be overlooked. That's what he's emphasizing here in this entire sutta, but he's not discounting the importance of study as well. There is a case where a Dhamma practitioner may have heard the Dhamma and have studied the Dhamma. They may spend their days describing the Dhamma. If this one neglects seclusion and does not commit to developing the inner tranquility that rests in refined mindfulness, this one does not dwell in the Dhamma. So it's not enough to just learn a little bit of the Dhamma and then start teaching or at least talking about it to other people. That doesn't make you one who dwells in the Dhamma. In fact, there's many stories where the Buddha discouraged people to do even that, even just discuss the Dhamma, unless they had a real, true understanding of what the Buddha was teaching and why. And again, that teaching must be grounded in a proper meditation practice. The Buddha continues, "There is a case where a Dhamma practitioner has heard and studied the Dhamma. They spend their days reciting the Dhamma." This is a common practice. In fact, the most populous modern Buddhist practice is devoted entirely on chanting. It has millions of followers. And again, I'm not denigrating it at all. It's simply not something that the Buddha taught. In this sutta, he's saying that's not it. Buddhist chant developed not as a devotional practice, which is how it's often portrayed, including that sect that I was just talking about. Buddhist chant arose because they didn't use the written word, even though the writing was around during the time of the Buddha. How they learned and practiced the Dhamma was through recitation, which looks a lot like chanting, doesn't it? And so that recitation, necessary to teach and preserve the Dhamma, then became this modern practice of chanting things. And again, just chanting something without the other framework of integrating the Eightfold Path is not going to deliver what the Buddha taught. It's just a different practice. If this one neglects seclusion and does not commit to developing the inner tranquility that rests in refined mindfulness, this one does not dwell in the Dhamma. The reference to seclusion, by the way, is to a meditation practice where we withdraw from the world for a period of time, every day, hopefully twice a day. And in that seclusion, we develop concentration. There is a case where a Dhamma practitioner has heard and studied the Dhamma. They spend their days thinking about, examining, and evaluating the Dhamma with their intellect. If this one neglects seclusion and does not commit to developing the inner tranquility that rests in refined mindfulness, this one does not dwell in the Dhamma. Simply put, it's more than just thinking about the Dhamma too, isn't it? Or analyzing it, or even seeing on an intellectual level, how does this fit in my life? Because it takes the entire Eightfold Path grounded in a meditation practice to see how it fits in your life. If you just look at it intellectually, you'll miss the entire meaning and purpose of the Buddha's Dhamma. The Buddha continues, "Then there is a case where a Dhamma practitioner has studied the Dhamma. They have investigated the dialogues and narratives of prose and verse, the spontaneous exclamations and quotations, the stories of birth and amazing events, and the question and answer sessions. They do not spend the day only in Dhamma study, and they do not neglect seclusion. They commit themselves to develop the inner tranquility that rests in refined mindfulness. This Dhamma practitioner dwells in the Dhamma." So we study the Dhamma, we investigate the Dhamma. But the most important aspect of that is still grounded in meditation. I got a question from an online student. This is probably a year ago, maybe even more, but it surprised me because it was never asked before, and I never even thought of it. And the question was, why did the Buddha keep meditating after he awakened? And it seems like a reasonable question, doesn't it? But it's a misunderstanding of why we meditate. We meditate to develop and maintain a well-concentrated mind. So even though the Buddha had awakened, he still took refuge in seclusion and in continuing with that meditation practice. So when you look at it that way, a meditation practice, a proper meditation practice, isn't simply a means to an end. It's a way of life for one who has well integrated or one who dwells in the Dhamma. So whether you have awakened or not, a quick description, the best description of awakening is full human maturity. Whether you have awakened or not, in fact, I would say even more so post-awakening, meditation would be something that you would simply naturally do. And it's important to look at it that way. It's not a task to take grudgingly. We should take to meditation practice as we do with the rest of the Dhamma with mudita, with joyful engagement with it, because it's leading us towards liberation. It's leading us towards wisdom and understanding. It's leading us to end ignorance of Four Noble Truths and develop a life of lasting peace and happiness, no matter what's occurring. And it takes a well-integrated and complete practice. The Buddha often talked about the heartwood of the Dhamma. The heartwood of the Dhamma is the Eightfold Path. And it's the only path the Buddha ever taught. It's a very simple and direct path, but it has its challenges, doesn't it? And it's not always easy. But the application is very simple and direct. And for a very brilliant purpose, the Buddha recognized upon his awakening that it was ignorance of Four Noble Truths that led to all manner of confusion, deluded thinking, and ongoing disappointing experiences and ongoing distraction. So he taught an eightfold path to recognize and abandon anything that is rooted in ignorance. The reason why he did that is he recognized the common problem of a mind rooted in ignorance is inclined to ignore its own ignorance. Why? So it can maintain that point of view. That point of view is called a wrong view as far as what the Buddha's taught, the Buddha teaches. And so the first factor of the Eightfold Path and the culmination of the path is right view, going from wrong view, seeing things not rooted in reality of Four Noble Truths, to resting in that view of reality that results in a mind of lasting peace and happiness. We're no longer disturbed by what's occurring. And the reason why we're no longer disturbed is we stop taking anything personal, because we know that there's nothing to take personal in the world. Let me continue. The Buddha continues, I have taught you about the person who is keen on study, keen on description, keen on recitations, keen on thinking, and on those that dwell in the Dhamma. Whatever a teacher should do out of sympathy for you and seeking your welfare, I have done for you. What a wonderful saying, isn't it? Because the Buddha was just another human being. He wasn't a saint. He wasn't a savior. He was simply a guy that figured it out. And he could have just as easily awakened and said, I got it, and lived his life in lasting peace and happiness. But he knew that an aspect of the Dhamma was to express your understanding to others. And so he spent the last 45 years of his life out of sympathy for humanity, teaching an authentic Dhamma. And he had the same challenges during his time that we have today, meaning an ego-driven need for power or for comfort and fame and riches. And he certainly had an opportunity nearly every day to be sponsored by and influenced by the very wealthy and the powerful of his time. And he accepted what was necessary, meaning at times he accepted food, shelter, clothing, and medicine for himself and his sangha. But he never took more than was necessary. In other words, he naturally practiced restraint, and he never sought fame. He never held himself out as a savior. And he always presented his Dhamma in this light. Ehepasiko, come and see for yourself. meaning he simply taught a pure and simple Dhamma, and then he let people develop it on their own. But he was always consistent and very pure in what he was saying. He never added or adapted his Dhamma to fit individual views, because he knew that that would ultimately be cruel. He taught his Dhamma so people could recognize their wrong views and develop right view. He concludes this. I'm going to read that again. Whatever a teacher should do out of sympathy for you and seeking your welfare, I have done for you. Over there are roots of trees and empty dwellings. He's talking about going meditate. When the Buddha gave instructions on meditation, which he gave very spare instructions because it doesn't need a lot of instructions, that was how he would describe your meditation practice. Go find the root of a tree or an empty hut, meaning go find a place that's quiet and withdrawn from the world. And then he says, don't be mindful, or don't be mindless, and don't fall into regret. Meaning now is a time to meditate. Now is a time to awaken, isn't it? And he taught a Dhamma for human beings to awaken in this lifetime and in this moment. It's not something that takes lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes as it's often portrayed. The Buddha taught a Dhamma practice for human beings to awaken, to gain full human maturity in this lifetime, as long as they integrate or dwell in the Dhamma. Practice right meditation and develop meditative absorption. That last line, meditative absorption, is often referred to as, as jhanas. That's the end of the sutta. Thank you for listening. Jhanas are 4 levels of meditative absorption that are often portrayed as something that are extraordinary and beyond the reach of most meditators. And of course, the Buddha never taught anything that was beyond the reach of anyone. They're simply levels of meditative absorption that are important to recognize that we develop, and we experience at least the first 3 levels of meditative absorption every time we meditate. The last level, and I won't get into the jhanas, I give plenty of talks on that, but they're just different levels of quieting the mind. The last level of meditative absorption is a mind resting in equanimity. But there's no distinction between a mind, as far as the jhanas are concerned, of a mind resting in equanimity permanently, an awakened mind, or an experience of equanimity that each and every one of us has in every meditation session, whether we recognize it or not. We've all had the experience, even if it was just for a brief moment, of a mind at peace. And I would bet that Poppy and Matt had that even today, correct? And that's that 4th level of meditative absorption. As we continue a meditation practice that is integrated with the entire Eightfold Path, when we're actually dwelling in the Dhamma, that mind of equanimity, of lasting peace and happiness, simply becomes the foundation for our lives. And isn't that what we all as human beings are really striving for? We want to find a way to develop a life that has everything covered. There's nothing to be concerned about, and our minds are at peace. The problem is we don't know how to do that because we're lacking in ignorance of 4 Noble Truths, the way things really are. So we go after that, developing a place of lasting peace and happiness rooted in ignorance, and so it can never deliver that. But when we approach that from right view and from a well-integrated Dhamma practice, from one who dwells in the Dhamma, then lasting peace, a mind of lasting peace and happiness, becomes possible. In fact, it becomes likely. How do we know? Because an awakened human being did this, and he taught us how to do that. And then we have it was last Tuesday, I gave the talk on the Upada Sutta, the importance of a well-focused sangha. And we have that here too. One of the most remarkable things that in my life, and I'm so grateful for, thankful for, is this well-focused sangha that we have here in Frenchtown. That's today's talk. So we'll go around the room. Is there any questions about today's talk? All right, let's go around the room and see if you have any other questions or you want to talk about your Dhamma practice. We'll start with Lorna. Good to see you this morning.
Thank you. Thank you for your talk. It's a new one. That was good. I think when I think of withdrawing and going into seclusion, I think one of the values of doing that is it produces a calm mind. And if you don't ever experienced a calm mind, I don't know how you would come to know your mind when it was engaged in thoughts and engaged in feelings.
Yeah.
You have to know a calm mind to see your engagement in your thoughts and your feelings. So I don't know how this practice would work without going into seclusion and meditating and learning a meditation practice. I can't see it yet ever working. So that just shows how valuable the meditation is. Also, it can be enjoyable, which is good.
It can be, yeah.
I had a meditation actually just yesterday evening, and I really got a very quiet mind. And you can feel, the pressure of keeping up our anatta. You can feel it suddenly just drop away.
Yeah.
And how pleasant and relaxing it is to be without feeling itself. And although you vow to yourself when you have those moments that you're not going to pick it up when you leave your cushion and get into life again, you always do. I guess that's the trick. But it is on those occasions when you do meditate and you do have that really peaceful mind, it is very, very rewarding and very enlightening, really, to how life can be. I can't think of anything else to say.
Said a lot. Thank you. That needing to meditate so that you can actually have an experience of a calm mind. You made the point. I mean, that's why we do it, and you can't do without it. The Tibetan word for meditation is gom, G-O-M, which simply means to become familiar with. And we need to become familiar with a calm and peaceful mind so we know what it is. So it's something that alone helps guide our practice. And then to recognize it, Lorna used the word anatta. Anatta means not self. The Buddha used this word in a way that was uncommon, the way it was commonly expressed during his time, to simply mean that the views we're holding of ourselves, to describe ourselves to ourselves in the world, are wrong views. Let go of those views. That's what the Buddha means by that term, anatta. And unless we have a way of developing concentration and recognizing those views, there's no way to let them go. They simply define our lives, don't they? And so we live our lives from views rooted in ignorance of the way things are, rather than an awakened mind seeing things as they truly are. Thank you, Lauren. Helen, good to see you this morning.
Thank you. Good to be here. One of the things that I've succeeded in developing in my meditation is really noting the rising and the passing of thoughts.
Yeah.
Initially, it would be one thought after the other, and you kind of check in every now and then and like, how did I get here? And so it allows me to recognize when a new thought comes and when it leaves. And that's very helpful throughout the day, too, to be able to do that. It helps you realize that even if this is a stressful moment, it too will rise and it too will pass. And if it's a joyful moment, it too will rise and it too will pass. And it might come back again, and it may go again, and it's okay. So all of that is really helpful. That's something that I can take off my cushion and into my life. And then Lorna one time prompted us to recognize that we're always also watching the rising and the passing of our breath, and that each moment we're bringing in the breath, we're letting out the breath. It's going somewhere. We're sharing it. And so then I started thinking about how I used to teach environmental sciences, and one of the programs I taught had to do with ancient artifacts, and that when you're holding an ancient artifact, you're holding something that someone else held. many years ago, many centuries ago, many centuries ago, and that you're holding something that was in their hand or that was crafted by them. You have this direct connection to that. And so then I thought about the breath and how my breath one moment may become Lorna's breath the next moment. And my breath may have come from many, many years ago. And just like the volcanic ash of Mount St. Helens made it around the world, maybe our breaths and our thoughts make it around the world. So it just, maybe we are connecting with a sangha that was many, many decades, centuries, millennia ago. And it just kind of made me feel like I was in the right place.
Yes.
So I value the sangha. I love the Eightfold Path. And I know the only real obstacle in following the Eightfold Path is yourself.
Right.
It's all up to you. And who has more control over you than you?
Wow.
So that's what went through my mind this morning.
Thank you.
Yeah. What's going on?
Yeah, but well focused and well integrated, dwelling in the Dhamma. Thank you, Helen. Mary, good to see you this morning.
Good to be here. Saturday Sangha, allowing me to come. And I was thinking as you were talking about how we hold the Dhamma in our hearts and hands, and that's 2,600 years ago. And how fortunate we to have the Dhamma and to have someone like you teaching what the Buddha taught. I think one of the things that first attracted me, if that's the right word, or first resonated with me when I came was how pure and simple and basic and quite logical the Dhamma is. Not magical and mystical, just quite practical. So even now, relative to what you just read, to notice what isn't there, I just find that fascinating, what isn't there and what is there, which is an experience of the integration of the Eightfold Path, and I had a lot of that this week in areas that I've talked about before that present struggles to me sometimes. I had a lot of really positive experiences this week of learning and growing in the Dhamma that I could see there coming and seeing for myself. And that's, I don't know, there's not a word for it, but it's a wonderful thing. So happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Glad you're here. Becky, good to see you this morning.
Good to be here, John.
Something that Helen said resonated with me, and that is that when she first started meditating, how she would say, "How did I get here?" And the only time that I feel like that doesn't happen to me is when I'm meditating here. So all I have to say today is thank you, Sangha.
Thank you for being here, joining us. There is a quantitative difference to meditating with the Sangha. I mean, that's one of the reasons why the Buddha emphasized it as the whole of the Dhamma. And it's not just because of meditating as a group, it's what else goes on here. We share more than just meditation space, don't we? We share our understanding of developing the Dhamma.
When I'm at home, I just feel like I barely can pull myself back to my breath. I do, and sometimes I can stay there for maybe 15 seconds and then going again.
Are you able to set aside a spot in your
I
house?
have a specific spot that I love. It's very comfortable. No one bothers me.
Good.
But what I don't have a timer, because I feel like if I set my clock, I'm gonna be waiting for it to go on. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You might, but I think you'd get used to it.
But I have noticed, I don't set the timer and I just do my best, but most of the time it ends up being a half an hour.
That's
Oh,
When I'm
good.
ready,
Yeah.
when I'm just ready to come out, or I'm just
that's
ready to
fabulous.
say, I feel like I should, just come out now. It's usually a half hour.
That's good.
I'll look at my clock and it's usually a half hour. So maybe it's better than I'm giving it credit for, but I feel
Awesome.
so much better when I'm here meditating.
Yeah.
And the other thing, something else just ran through my mind that you said. I thought of, and now I forgot it again. Okay, well, I'll just leave it there. If it comes back.
If it comes back, just
I'll
holler.
share it.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you could listen to download the guided meditations
I
too.
thought of doing that too. I
Yeah.
haven't done that, but I have thought of doing that.
Yeah, there's a little tiny icon on the player itself that you can download it. So then you don't have to keep going back to the website, or you can go back to the website. But I look forward to hearing what that other thought was when it comes back to you. Anthony, good to see you this morning.
Good to see you. Good to see everyone. I appreciated the talk because it reminds us that there's two different ways to experience something. So, intellectual way, like Helen could probably identify every tree along the towpath in Frenchtown, but and a geologist can identify the soil. But it's so important to have the experiential component where you actually are in the presence of nature, hearing the birds and feeling the ground under your feet and smelling the air and seeing the water. And so you can only get so much from the intellectual part, and meditation definitely opens us up, like Lorna said, to have the spaciousness to be able to appreciate the experience and to know how to apply the lessons of the Dharma. It's so powerful through the ability to meditate, because like Lorna said, without meditation, you wouldn't be open to observing what you've learned in practical real life terms. So I have, and I think another thing that's kind of overlooked here, it's at least it's important to me, is metta. And I know it's like metta sounds very sappy. Just so you know, metta is sending loving kindness first to yourself, then to people you're close with, then to people who maybe are neutral, and then people who you don't love so much. And as a lawyer, I could be in 50 battles at any given time. So the kinds of thoughts that pop up in my head can be very angry. And I this week, found myself in that, and I just started to do metta, and it just melted away. And I think part of it is that you can't be angry at other people if you love yourself, because you can have that compassion to them.
Yeah.
And so I think metta is a really important piece to this puzzle.
Oh yeah. That's why we close every class with metta.
Yeah.
Can't.
I mean, initially it's so counterintuitive. Dan Harris calls it Valentine's Day with a machete. But the science is there to back it, just like meditation.
Oh yeah.
So thank you for that talk. It's wonderful.
Thank you, Anthony. Eva, good to see you this morning.
It's wonderful to be here. Great to see everyone. Sangha always does aid in a deeper, more concentrated meditation. All I know is that everything that I've learned here and through my meditation has helped me to get through many moments in my life that I know would have been different had I not had this foundation. And that something that I've come to be more open to is trust. And I think I can trust myself more because I'm more in tune with myself. And I do have that mind that can be calm and can also see when I'm not being calm and say, it's okay, just ride it. And then when I come out on the other side, it's like, wow, wow, what happened? How did I do that? Because if I'd have told myself, this is what you need to do, but I wouldn't have done it. And I just went with the flow, and it was really great.
Thank you. What a great description of dwelling in the Dhamma. You don't have to think about it all the time. It becomes a natural expression of who we are. Thank you. Poppy, welcome to our sangha.
Thank you.
How was your meditation this morning?
It was good. I haven't really meditated before, so I think for me it's surprisingly more difficult than I thought.
To keep the method up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trying to constantly bring yourself back. So I'm sure it takes a while to get there.
It does.
Yeah.
The trick is understanding that it's both recognizing that you're caught up in your thoughts and coming back to your breath. It's not, the reason why I say that, it's not just being mindful of your breath, or then it just becomes too frustrating, because nobody can just be mindful of their breath. I've been meditating for too many years, not too many years, a lot of years, 37, 38 years. And somebody asked me one time, how long are you mindful of your breath? And I honestly couldn't answer it, because I don't pay that much attention, but it might be, I don't know, it might be 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes. It's certainly not 30 minutes, but that doesn't matter. Every time you recognize that you're caught up in your thoughts and come back to your breath, you're increasing your concentration. And that's the point of meditation. And if you remember that, then there's no meditation method or no meditation session that will be frustrating, because it's fulfilling that purpose. And then, like we talked about, it's not just meditation. It's part of integrating this thing called the Eightfold Path. And that's what the talks are about. Again, every talk I give is based on a sutta, which is a direct teachings of the Buddha that relates in some way to the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. So, and don't let that be too overwhelming, but I hope you continue to join us. And
I did enjoy your talk after you explaining the text. I think that's very helpful. It's new to understanding so that I think that's really great.
Oh, great. Thank you for saying that. And, the other thing, you'll hear me say this often, and I don't mean it to denigrate or dismiss or delegitimize any other Buddhist practice, but what the Buddha taught is very, very different than what most of modern Buddhism is about. And that's just a statement. That's just what it is. And it is very simple. It's very direct. It's not always easy, though. I used to say, maybe I'll say it a little bit more often, that it's a practice of ease and joy, but it's not for the faint of heart. You got to keep going with it. I'm so glad you joined us this morning. Matt, welcome to our Sangha. How was your meditation this morning?
It was good. With Poppy, I have to agree. It's I've read about Buddhism. I've read a lot of books, and I've never meditated formally. I've tried. I've dabbled a little, if you will. But this is the first time I really sat for 30 minutes and meditated. It was interesting because my mind goes constantly.
Yeah.
And I feel it was difficult to try to stop thinking and try to focus on my breath, focus on just the world. But the 30 minutes went by like that.
Wow.
And I was surprised because 30 minutes when you said it made for your first time, it's a long time, but it was over before I realized it, and so it was really good.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm in a period of my life where I'm looking for a new perspective, and there's things that I want to change about myself, and part of that is that self-love and that trust that I need to gain with myself to make myself a better person. So that's part of why I'm at this point where I want to continue to grow. This is something that I think will help get me to that point.
Thank you. What do you think? Do you think this
Yay.
practice?
You are in the right
You're in the right place.
Good.
We're in the boat.
That's called upeka, joyful enthusiasm. So, again, welcome to our sangha. You said something about not thinking. There's a very subtle difference between what the Buddha taught as meditation and what most understandings of meditation are. That it's about getting to a place where there's no such thought, or you're not aware of thought. That's not it. This meditation method is not about developing a trance-like state. It's simply to not be distracted by thoughts arising and passing away. Because the Buddha recognized that's impossible. There were meditation methods around during the Buddhist time that were designed specifically to do that, to take you into a trance-like state. And I could do that for every one of you in 2 minutes. We could be in this blissful trance-like state. The reason why I don't teach it is because it's of no value. It's just a distraction. The subtle difference of not being distracted by your thoughts and being mindful of your breath is a well-concentrated mind. Lorna described it really wonderfully well a couple of years ago, that she saw her. Well, you want to say it?
Yeah.
What?
Your thoughts?
I walk the clouds.
Being above your
I don't think
thoughts?
I'm
I was, yeah. Your breath is down. Well, the clouds is a good one too. So.
Yeah.
I
Both.
think what John was referring to is that I once said that when you're on your e-devices like your iPad or something like that, and you bring another page on top, but the other one's still underneath, and you flip between the two, and it's like that you try and keep your breath on top, but there's thoughts still underneath, but you just try and hold on to your thoughts of your breath. And John will often say, be gentle with yourself, because it's really difficult to do. But
At times.
well, it is difficult. The concentration is that level of concentration as you build it up. It is difficult to do. But as I say, just do it in little bits at a time, and don't get frustrated, because that your own self is the worst thing. It's your own self that's going to knock you off. It's your own else. It's your own mind. So just try and keep your mind on your breath, even though there's maybe thoughts still in your mind, but you can override that and just keep on your breath.
Thank you. It was a great description of it. And what Lorna said, you hear me say often, be very gentle with yourself and with the practice. The practice itself is simple. It takes a little bit of time to integrate the Eightfold Path, but fairly quickly that becomes your framework for how you live your life, and you'll start seeing things from right view. If you've been to the website, it's good to start at the page for new visitors, and then go to there's a page on the introduction to the Dhamma with some different talks, and that's a good way to get into it. There's 350 videos and 450 talks. So, there's books, there's articles, and
Buddha binging.
yeah. Hey. Wow. Yeah, and there's an app now, so you can binge on the Buddha. That's great.
And there's your class in January or in December. Right?
The Truth of Happiness. Yeah, we go through
that really helps.
we go through one of my books called The Truth of Happiness over the holidays, and where we start usually right at the end of the year and then progress for a couple months, and that gives a pretty good introduction too. Right on the homepage, there's links to very specific articles beginning with the Nagara Sutta, and all of those will give you a good background as to what we're teaching here. But most of all, be gentle with yourself, and I hope you continue to join us. This is the most
John, you
important
might
thing.
also mention a retreat.
Oh, I was going to mention we have 2 retreats a year. We had a wonderful spring retreat. Our fall retreat is September 20th to the 23rd. There's still plenty of room, and that's an opportunity to really immerse yourself in these teachings for 3.5 days in a really wonderful setting. And there's info on the website about that too. Somebody from the Qigong class is coming. She signed up.
Oh.
I can't think of her name. Yeah, I'm sure you know her, but I can't think of her name right now.
There we go. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions or comments about today's class? Yes, Becky. Oh, you remembered.
I remember.
A well
Two
concentrated.
things, yeah, well concentrated.
That's it.
Helen said that only you are in control.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I love about the Dhamma and this practice is
Me too.
that it really relies on your own personal responsibility.
Yeah.
You're not handing anything off to anyone else.
Yeah.
You're responsible for your own happiness and your own peace of mind, which who else could be responsible for that?
Well, it means that you can also fix it.
You
Maybe
can
fix isn't the right word,
right.
but
You
you
Yeah.
alone are also
Right.
empowered.
Empowered.
Yeah.
And and then when and you mentioned metta, I could use I'm working very hard now on the idea that you can use metta to send good thoughts. To someone who has really, really hurt you very badly. And you just want to see something really bad happen to them. And that's not a good place to be. And I mean, you feel what you have to feel. I mean, it's what you're feeling is what you're feeling. And you have to feel it. But I think that maybe there might be a time when you could actually forgive someone for that. But I'm not there yet. And it's very difficult. It's very hard. I'm sorry.
Oh, no need to apologize, Becky. You show great courage in bringing that here and bringing it into the Dhamma, being willing to see it differently. I mean, you could say in general the Eightfold Path is about ending conflict in our own minds, isn't it? Because that's exactly what it is. And in so doing, we end conflict with other people. And we also understand where they're coming from because we understand the nature of our own suffering, our own dukkha. Yeah.
Right.
This is harder to do. And
Yeah.
this is
Yes.
harder than
It's a burden.
Yes.
That's right. That's right. And metta is a direct way of doing that. And the maybe I'll do this soon. Probably not next week because I'm already got things set up. But the Buddha taught metta initially. Even what we're going to read later is a portion of the Karaniya Metta Sutta. The Buddha taught specifically to end conflict in the Sangha's mind. There was two things going on. They were meditating out in the forest, and there was a lot of different noises and animals and stuff that concerned them. And then they got wind of other people talking negatively about them and making accusations about them that weren't true. And how do we deal with that? And they came to the Buddha with these concerns. And he taught them metta, which we're going to do in just a second. So you're again, you show that you're really dwelling in the Dhamma to see things that way. It's not an instantaneous fix to the world's problems. In fact, that would be cruel, wouldn't it? Because we wouldn't gain any understanding. But what it teaches us is our role in what's occurring. And if it's being upset with the way another person is treating us, it has us look at our part in that, which is what we can control. And it's the only thing we can control, isn't it? And it's not based on merit, meaning it's not based on how wonderful a Buddhist practitioner I am or how much chanting I'm doing or praying or anything else. It has to do with how much I understand the nature of reality. And the more I understand it, the more my mind is at peace. Which makes sense, doesn't it? When you understand something, you're no longer worried about it. You're no longer concerned about it. You're no longer reacting to it because you understand it. And the Buddha's teachings gives us a profound understanding of human life in this impermanent environment. It ends all conflict. Yes, please.
Becky, this is something that has helped me. I think in pictures a lot, and sometimes movie reels, as Jen will tell you. Sometimes I even cast them with people. Here's when I have something like that that I want to let go of. I have this image of like something from Tolkien, a boat with that worry, that trouble, that person, that issue, whatever on it. And I push it off the shore, and then I reach back and I grab my meta arrow. The flames come up, and then it just goes to ashes, and then it's gone. That's what I do.
You gotta. Can you do animation? You gotta. That's great.
Of course, I'm visualizing.
With all the-
That boat a little harder than her. Sorry.
Is the person in the boat?
No,
It's
in my vision. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe you start with my vision.
And it's probably not terrible to have like a thought bubble where you key somebody's car and then you just
But
you don't actually do it.
John, one other thing that you said
That's great.
that I was thinking of is the only conflict from this practice is, created by the mental fabrications, the feelings, the thoughts,
Mhm.
Learned behavior, whatever words suit you, and part of what I'm saying about the simplicity and the basicness is that none of the conflict comes from the Buddha or the teachings. Like there might be hard concepts, but they're not conflicting.
That's right.
You're not.
There's no compromising.
Yeah, it's consistent and true, and so when we do find a place in our practice where maybe we experience doubt or challenge or whatever, the beauty is to turn it back on yourself, to really view where that conflict is coming from. And it's, somewhere in here, it's not
Yeah.
in the Dhamma. So.
Wow, what a profound statement. There is nothing within the Dhamma that conflicts itself, or it conflicts with the Dhamma, or contradicts the Dhamma. It's pure in that way, isn't it?
Right.
And so we know that when there is aversion, one of the defilements, it is within us. It's in our own minds. And in fact, the Buddha taught to that one of the hindrances, one of the great hindrances, is doubt. And that relates to being very gentle with ourselves too, because doubt will arise. We'll question it because we're questioning our very beliefs of who and what we are. And it's those beliefs, those views that are to be recognized and abandoned. Thank you for saying that.
If I could just say one thing about
Sure.
thinking the meta, the fact that you recognize that you want to be able to show kindness to this person is a big step. Because look how many people walk around in hate, and anger, and don't even want to acknowledge the other side.
And justify it.
Yeah, and that you can accept that you can't accept it right now is a big deal.
Yeah.
And I think there's a selfish component to metta too, because I always look at it as, if this person were happy, kind, and loving like I would like them to be, I probably wouldn't be at odds with them. So maybe if it comes true, it'd be a better world for me. And the other thing is that if you can be happy, loving, and kind, people will like you more. And when people like you more, they want to do more for you. So there is a selfish component to metta that I see.
But even that is ultimately practical, though, isn't
Yeah,
it?
and good.
The end result of it is, and that speaks to right intention, the second factor of the Eightfold Path. It's, you could say the Buddha was, in one sense, the most selfish human being that ever lived, because he wanted to have a world that he live in that he could understand and be at peace with. And so that's what he taught. He taught the most important thing to himself, and he taught it to other people, and it works. I mean, that's the most remarkable thing. It works. It ends conflict for ourselves and for those we'll come in contact with. It's entirely practical.
Mhm.
You know, the other aspect of it, and Mary kind of touched on it too, it's not something that everyone has to do, because that's not practical, is it? It's not practical. Everybody's gonna, we need a bigger room for one thing. But we understand that too. That we understand the nature of other people's confusion, deluded thinking, and contributions to the world's suffering because we understand it in ourselves. And whether we're completely through the process or not, it brings us great comfort in this moment. Remarkable. And it's still here today. It's still here in this room. Any other questions or comments? What a great
I
class.
just have one other comment.
Sure.
And that was something that Matt, right?
Yes.
Matt said that before my husband comes on Tuesday nights, and he's probably listening. Before he started coming, and he has shared this with everybody, that he read and he did a lot to pursue and understand Buddhism, and he attempted to meditate many times and unsuccessfully, like almost a little bit of a fabrication that he was sitting there, you know, in our house, dedicating time, but without a path to do it. Is, I guess those would be my words. He would say it a little bit differently, but then he started listening to you. He was like, "Oh, what's this?" You know, as I read the book. But then he started listening to John, and then and not someone who I've ever seen join a group before, and so he came at the intellectual level, having immersed himself in a lot of reading, but he would say that it's the sangha and it's the three jewels that have, you know, transformed things for him because of the sangha and because of doing things like going on the retreat and conversations with you and coming and bringing a real strong discipline to the practice. So he's, you know, hopefully you'll get to meet him sometime, but that what you said reminded me of his journey. So I really wish you both the best. I hope we see you again.
Yeah. Thank you, Mary. That was beautiful. Yeah, we are so fortunate to have the three jewels, you know, the triple refuge right here in this room. You know, the example of an awakened human being, his teachings, and this well-focused sangha. It is very rare in the world. I've been around the Buddha game for a long time, and I've yet to see a sangha this well-focused and actually developing what the Buddha taught. To all of you. I think that's enough for today. We'll finish with metta as we always do. So find your relaxed meditation posture and gently close your eyes and gently close your mouths. And again, take a moment to become mindful of your in-breath and your out-breath. Bring it up. And these are the Buddha's words on metta from the Karaniya Metta Sutta. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud or demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove. Wishing, in gladness and in safety, may all beings be at ease. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short, or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. Even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings. Radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will. Whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness, one should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding. By not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. Thank you all for a wonderful class this morning. Peace.
Peace.
Thank you, John.
Thank you all.
It was a great one last.